Welcome to Britannia,
where the world's first detective is standing at death's door.
Welcome to WhoDooTV. I'm Hooser.
And I'm Jared, and today we're talking about Britannia.
This is an awesome book. I enjoyed it. It's by Valiant. Writer is Peter Milligan. Artist Juan Jose Rip. And colors by Jordi Belair. Letters by Dave Sharp. A very spectacular looking book.
Oh yeah, it's a gorgeous book. Steeped in history. Everything that's kind of talking around it is all based on like true history, and it's an awesome book.
This book brings us back to Rome, and we're talking about an actual Caesar of Nero.
Yeah.
In about 60 AD is where it initially starts at. We get introduced to Nero. We get introduced to the Vestal Virgins. The Vestal Virgins in Rome were the highest power of women there was there in Rome. When women didn't have much rights, these women had a lot of power.
They were able to kind of influence and speak to the emperors of the time. Yeah, there was one in particular, the head Vestal Virgin, Rubria, who was pretty much, she stood next to Nero here in this story pretty much the entire time.
And during this time, I mean, Rome's taking over, and they're taking over all kinds of places, right? A lot of this book takes place in called Britannia. And Britannia is a Roman-ruled area. They say it's near Britain and like Ireland in that area of sort. And so this book really starts off in 60 AD.
We meet a legionnaire. His name is Antonius Axia. And Rubria comes in and she enters his tent to kind of ask him to do a mission for the Vestal Virgins. And the mission involves having to go and save one of the Vestal Virgins that has been kidnapped by what she calls a cult.
This other Vestal Virgin that is about to be sacrificed, he pretty much just does some work with some nice gruesome blood and art.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. It's one of those scenes where like the bad guy has the knife to her throat and is like, what are you gonna do? Antonius Axia shows himself to be like a total badass, so he just jumps in and stabs the guy.
yeah, and just totally takes work. And then they call upon Orcus, who is, just like this demonic demon that's there, and you can just see his red eyes peeking out of the skull. It's a pretty interesting scene. So
Antonius starts to have this smell. He's recognizing the smell of decay. And it's almost consuming him in a way where like you can't really think about anything else other than this smell or this presence that he's feeling there. Kind of where he gets influenced by it in a way. He almost needs to be cleansed by the Vestal Virgins after this.
Right, and that's where we get in and we start meeting the Vestal Virgins a little bit more. And we just see the ways that one of them's talking to Nero, and just Nero's the Caesar at that time. They are just, they're letting him have it. Like, they're not holding their tongue to him.
No, yeah. That just shows how influential they are and how important they are. One thing that's actually mentioned, and we forgot to say, the Vestal Virgins also, they oversee a flame. It's a big basin. A flame is being kept there, and it's said that if the flame ever goes out, then Rome will fall. Right. So it's really important. They're so important to the Roman culture. Right.
And so like it's almost like she can say she has these visions of things are about to happen, and if you don't do this, Nero, then the flame will go out.
Nero's like, no, holds it above his head.
Antonius gets back to I believe it's back to Rome itself. He is cleansed with blood by the other virgin. Yeah. It's
gruesome.
Interesting scene right there. And then he gets held over the flame for a cleanse as well. Later on, they give him the Codex. Yeah. And they get him to read it. And like throughout it, I feel like it gives him some type of special power. Yeah. Like some type of, obviously later he becomes the first detector, the detectionaire. But it gives him this like, an extra power.
Yeah, he said that as he was reading the Codex, he said he was consuming the words, but then all of a sudden the words started to consume him, and then he kind of like, it just became a part of his being at that point. Really interesting.
Yeah, he says he goes through the human labyrinth.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of a good frame of words with there.
For sure.
And then the virgin that he saved got approved from the head virgin to no longer be a virgin.
Yeah.
To put it another way. And brown chicken, brown cow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Then we fast forward 6 years later to where it's about 60, 65, 66 AD. Mm-hmm. We run in on a guy with one of his mistresses, who's also running in on him, is Antonius Axia.
Yep.
And
he kind of just forces his way in, and like, there's a guy who's even like, I tried to stop him, but he wouldn't go.
Right. And the guy comes out with his knife, and just the art is penciling is pretty funny in it too. Mm-hmm. The guy coming after him with his knife, and he just like shoves him by the face, and he's sitting there laying on the ground naked.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because Antonius also said, like, I like to catch them naked because, you know,
they tell me a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. So he's just kind of following up on an investigation with this guy. It kind of shows like where he's at, what his situation is.
Then we have the guy on the ground. He's a senator, and it shows that Antonius is pretty known because he's like, I know who you are. You're the detectionary, right? So he's made a name for himself in that time since he had saved the Vestal Virgin 6 years later.
Yeah.
Then we later see Antonius Axia meet a child and calls him uncle. However, we learn that is his son.
That is his son.
That he has not told. Right away, questions gave me that this might be the Vestal Virgin's kid during the time frame.
That's what I had thought too.
Yeah.
I mean, it is revealed later that it's not.
Right.
Which is super weird because I don't know, what was that scene about then? you know, that's something that I couldn't figure out.
Right.
But anyways, I digress.
I mean, that's what you need to do to get special powers.
You think like have the Codex consume you and then sleep with one of the Vestal Virgins? And, like
question.
It's like
Peter Milligan
the wax seal on that.
Right. And then we just, after he's been with this kid, you can just see Antonius Axia is just pretty distraught. He's in the bar, not wanting to talk to anybody. And then we meet a guy who I later like in the book a lot is Bran, his servant. Yeah,
Bran's awesome.
Yeah.
He's just this big brute, this blonde brute who actually happens to be from Britannia himself.
And then we later see Nero. He's doing Nero stuff, and a soldier barges in and basically talks about the terror that's happening in Britannia. And it brings on the terror of talking in Britannia and about all of some of the demonic things that are happening and just the craziness, and that there's things that need to be taken care of while he's there.
Yeah, there's people who are going crazy. It's like the dead are coming back, and it's just fog that is bringing all these horrors, and it's just this crazy thing that the people that are stationed there in Britannia are experiencing. And
pretty interesting. They get to knock on the door, and they're trying to figure out what it is, and it's people trying to get him to go see Nero. Yeah,
so then it cuts back to Nero, and he's slicing the throat of the guy who came to talk to him about what's going on in Britannia. And he turns to Antonius, and he's like, look, I killed him now. Like, his spirit's leaving his body, so talk to his spirit, figure out what's happening. And Antonius is like, I don't do that. You just killed this guy for no reason, pretty much. And Nero, he's just like, oh, well, you know, this is gross. Someone needs to come clean this blood up. I'm disgusted by the blood here.
He was up for crucifixion anyway.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, the guy, he was going to crucify him anyway because he left his post.
Right.
And so he was like, well, you know, he got some mercy in that way.
Right.
Nero's ridiculous.
And then Nero talks to Antonius about just the trouble in Britannia and that he is pretty much ordered to go there and to start to serve. Antonius gets back with the virgins, and they're just talking about, they're encouraging him to go.
Yeah.
That they need him to go. When Antonius is talking to Rubia, he actually runs back into, and he sees Drusa, the one that he saved. And she totally blocks him from talking. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? You need to leave him alone from talking. Kind of an interesting little thing that happened there.
Yeah, I didn't really understand what was going on in that one either.
Right.
I guess his whole relationship with Drusa is like kind of weird to me.
Right.
And so Rubria goes to speak with Nero, and she says like he's pretty much the perfect one, so like send him over there. So then we see that Antonius is leading a band of legionnaires into Britannia at this point. It kind of cuts to that, and they come across over the hill, and they just see this monstrosity. It's almost just, it's a monster of like flesh and like eyeballs, and it's just all over, and it's a really intense moment.
Those guys pretty much just get all eaten up by this huge monster that it shows.
Yeah.
And that kind of ends our first book. So right away in book 2, we see Antonius Axia actually run across Bella, who was his wife. And it's just this weird scene because she's dead. It's almost like he can see through it right away, and he stabs her. He recognizes a green mist comes out. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, that made me wonder if that's part of his powers, that he can see that.
I almost wondered if it wasn't his ability to hold to reality and remember like exactly like what happened. He knows that in reality his wife is dead.
Right.
So that was kind of what I took out of it. Like, this guy is someone who can really bring himself back, and he's not going to fall for the tricks that might or illusions or anything that might come his way.
Right, and I think it could be that as well, because this is as he's walking to Britannia, and they go across the scene where they're coming across all of the bodies.
Yeah,
a pretty gnarly scene. It's heads on poles and on on spikes and blood and ravens eating up bodies. People on the base, the Legionnaires on the base, are a little more confrontational to him, and they all look a little messed up.
Yeah, they're like crazed in a way.
Yeah, they're crazed. Their faces are kind of mutilated.
Yeah.
And everybody's kind of like in a weird state there.
They're living in a land where there's some sort of demonic activity or some spirit that's taking over and causing all these crazy visions and everything. I mean, I don't blame them for being crazy.
Right. And then they show the bodies of the guys, and their eyes are like bugged out, and they're just totally like, they're mutilated for the most part. In a weird scene. They get kind of upset that Antonius is even there investigating.
Well, he starts noticing a couple things with the bodies. He's noticing that the wounds that they've sustained are knife wounds, are sword wounds, you know?
Right.
So that says something more, like it's not the gnashing teeth of the monster that he's seen. It's these are sword wounds.
In part of this book, they bring back Rubia, where she's talking to Nero, and they're talking about Orcus. And it's really interesting. It's like she already knows what it is in Britannia. And it's like clearly Nero knows too. So there's a lot more there. And it makes me wonder, what kind of hand is she holding? Like, what game is she playing?
Yeah, definitely. It was kind of an interesting scene. It kind of revealed more of her character, and
she's playing a weird game.
She definitely is. She definitely is.
And there's a lot to her character that through the book it kind of questions you. And obviously Nero's playing his weird game. And I always want to talk about just the history of this book is really cool. I know, just looking up Nero's past, in not too distant timeline, he ends up killing himself. He commits suicide. So I wonder how Milligan actually plays this in the story.
Yeah.
How he plays that throughout the book, considering that the new one's coming out shortly.
Right, yeah.
So how that works. I mean, spoiler alert, Nero dies, he kills himself. But it's,
But we'll see if that's actually in these series here, because I think he'd be a really interesting emperor to maintain if they keep doing these short series. So Antonius, he goes to this village in Britannia, and he's kind of doing more of his detection work and kind of seeing what's up. Then all of a sudden, there's a huge brawl between the locals and the Romans that are there, and it just breaks out of nowhere.
I like the little kid. Hit him.
Yeah. The little kid, he's just on this roof watching him.
And then this is where we meet, what do they call her? One of the British witches. And
she's a weird. A weird. W-Y-R-D.
And so Antonius ends up meeting this weird woman, and and they start building some rapport with each other. This weird woman, her name is Bodemall.
Bodmal. Yeah, it's some ancient British name, But then we find that she's wed to this druid, and his name is Aaron. But it's, as Antonius points out, their relationship is less like husband and wife, but more owner and slave. Right. Just the way that they interacted with each other in a short amount of time that he saw them together. That's super interesting too.
Antonius just kind of staking out the joint type of thing, the area where the demon's been seen. They see this really demonic looking wooden earthly creature coming out, and then you just see this brigade of more demonic creatures riding horses with flames.
Yeah, that's kind of what it looks like, especially to the guy who is kind of getting run down.
Right. With the dogs and everything too.
Yeah. There's these dogs that are super vicious, but these demonic creatures are actually
legionnaires.
Yeah, they're legionnaires, and they're just having fun, and they're kind of running down these guys and scaring them and creating kind of a ghost story of their own.
Right, they're kind of playing off on it on their own. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of an interesting little backwards approach that they have. And then they learn that Antonius actually sees them. They put a knife to his throat, and they're...
But Antonius, he is a legionnaire himself, and so he doesn't back down. He fights back, and he fights back hard.
And book 2 kind of let off right when the legionnaires has his knife up to Antonius's throat.
Yeah.
And Antonius just basically just chops his head off, and like you said, he's a legionnaire already. I mean, that's what he did.
Yeah.
Prior to being the detector.
Yeah. So it's kind of crazy. So he ends up killing the guy, and he realizes that if they find out that if he's killed this guy, that they're gonna kill him. So he needs to kind of mess with the body in a way to make it mutilated, so that it looks more like this is the work of whatever is taking over the area, this entity.
At the same time, they show Bodmal in a separate area, like she's calling upon one of the demons, like a root, to take root in her, I believe.
Yeah. She was using a mandrake root, which is like kind of a witch's root.
Right.
It's something that is known. Like it becomes its own person.
Right.
It's really weird, but yeah.
Right. It kind of like just awakens inside of her. Then he does the slaughtering, try to manipulates the bodies to make it look like it was one of the demons that did it. And then you see Orcus call upon Antonius Axia.
Yeah.
Antonius, I recognized it right away. I smelt it, like he knew it was what it was.
Yeah, he knew it was the exact same thing that he experienced back 6 years earlier when he went to go save the Vestal Virgin from the cultists.
And then it does a weird little scene where it talks about how the child had actually, the mother died at birth when his son was born. And Orcus kind of plays that out, like you actually hate your child because he took your wife.
Yeah.
So kind of an interesting piece that Orcus actually plays on Antonius to try to manipulate his mind and play some mind games with him.
Yeah, he wants him to be angry. He wants him to be out of control. Yeah, it's a really intense moment.
And just at that time, the demon that Bodmal asked to awaken shows up on the other side of him.
Yeah.
So now he's between Orcus and Bodmal's demon that she called upon.
But the demon's almost it's there to kind of push the demon away, to push Orcus away.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a weird spell, pretty much,
Bodmal seems pretty cool. I mean, she seems like there's some little thing that her and Antonius kind of linger that you kind of notice that they have.
Yeah, there is a bit of a relationship, and you can tell that Antonius has something for her, especially when he's extremely concerned about her and her relationship with her husband. He's definitely got some feeling for her in some way. Antonius decides that he's just going to go confront Aaron face to face. He wants to go talk to him just to kind of use him in his detecting. He's not necessarily going to speak about Bodmal at all, but he goes he finds Aaron's hut. He's asking people about where his hut is and everything. And he gets there, and he finds wine on the table. Right. Where usually they drink ale out there. So it was kind of weird in that way. It was just a detail that popped out to him.
Because, where they're at, that is one thing that they noticed. And that later shows itself a little bit more as we watch this.
Yeah.
The weird thing was when that cup just melts in his hand.
Yeah. It's another spell, another magic thing. The cup that he was drinking, he tasted the wine from, melts out of his hand and shatters on the ground. And he turns the corner, and there's Aaron standing there looking right at him. Right. He's a weird looking character. He really is. He's
pretty cool. He should be in the WWE.
I can see that. He's got the face paint and everything. Yeah.
It'd be fun. And then he keeps putting spells on him. So he goes up to actually punch Aaron, and his hand turns into the weird root.
Yeah. And it becomes wooden and rooted. And and Aaron's just laughing about it. He thinks it's hilarious. Comes back, and it shows that his hand didn't turn to wood. Right. It was more of an illusion, but it sticks with him. He says, my arm it still feels wooden, feels almost...
Feels like wood, yeah.
Yeah, foreign in a way.
And then he gets away. He leaves the hut. Aaron's actually trying to get Bodmal to go sleep with Antonius.
Yeah.
Like, he's trying to manipulate some more. Another one playing the game.
Yep.
And so the next day, Antonius actually goes into the captain's quarters and sees a similar glass of wine.
He tastes it, and apparently he's also a sommelier. I didn't know that.
Right.
But he can taste that it's the same wine that Aaron had in his home. Right. So there's a connection there, and almost a trade, if you will.
And then later that night, Bodmal comes in and she beds Antonius. When he's sleeping with her, she like turns into an image of his dead wife.
Yeah, weirds him out. And doesn't she say something about like how she wanted him to enjoy it, or like
right? And she's like, "Oh, you saw her. Forgive me." Like that's what she wanted. Like she was purposely trying to do that.
Yeah.
head games.
Then another psychological head game happens, where like she puts her hand on his shoulder, but the hand is hairy and like dark, and like there's a fur on it, and he turns around and she's a werewolf now, and it's like, what the heck just happened?
She almost looks like a character from Iron Maiden cover.
Because she maintains her hair,
right?
So very like 80s metal,
right?
Like,
yeah. That's what I thought at first was Iron Maiden. I saw that picture in the book.
I think it's pretty awesome. But yeah, so that's kind of how like the third book ends, and then we come to the conclusion.
Or I had this book monthly. I was getting it. I had it on my pull list. By this time, having it in a monthly set, I was frustrated with this book. I wanted to get some answers of what was going on. There was tons of questions, and it kept building up questions, and it kept building up questions.
Definitely.
And it kept building up questions. I was glad it was only a 4-part book, because I was pretty frustrated at this point. The good thing is we're going to get to book 4, and it's probably one of the better closers of any of the books I've read in a while.
Yeah.
For such a build-up and such a frustration.
Yeah, it does well. It does really well. So book 4 starts, and we're back in the bedroom of Antonius, and he's being attacked by Bodmal as this werewolf.
And she's saying, like, I'm sorry as it happens.
Yeah, which means, like, if you remember, Aaron he encouraged her to go sleep with him. Right. So it's another spell by Aaron. And this guy, he just kind of doesn't care, and he wants his own thing to happen, you know?
Yeah. I can't help myself, she's telling him, and it makes me, I don't know, not like Aaron at all.
No, Aaron sucks.
Yeah. He actually gets a sighting of Rubia, and Rubia tells him, remember the Codex, remember the Codex. He's weirded out a little bit, like, you're actually here, what's going on? And so he visions being above the flame and then getting back the knowledge that he had from the Codex and his experience with the Vestal Virgins.
So he ends up using the Codex in a way to remind Bodmal that she has the strength to hold up against what's happening to her and the creature that's sort of taken over her body.
Right, to get ahead of Orcus, yeah.
Yes, yeah. And so she pretty much comes down from that. She's being brought back to her human form, and she talks about like how she didn't mean to do that and that he needs to find an end to this. And
then Bran comes in and he's like, what's going on here?
Yeah, he's like, if you're going to throw a party, you should let me know.
And he turns and Bodmal's vanished. And then they start talking about the fog. The fog is building up in the area where Orcus has been.
Yeah, so they need to go out and kind of investigate again.
Well, and it's weird. You go back to the captain's quarters and everybody in the area. They're like killing rabbits, slitting rabbits, having sacrifices.
Yeah.
And they're trying to give it to Orcus, I believe. And people are still against Antonius from being there. Yeah, because he's sticking his head in places that they don't want him to stick his head in. And we start to learn about the deal that's been made with
between Aaron and the captain,
right,
and all these people. So in exchange for wine, the captain is getting some villagers, and they're pretty much just using them for sport to run down like we had seen earlier. It's just this camp that's been crazed pretty much. You know, the presence of Orcus has really twisted their minds, and it really shows just how depraved they've gotten.
Person that Bodmal meets into the woods, and she's trying to say like he's gonna die without my help, and that just kind of figured out when she mentions the dark side. There's that reference for the Shadow Man, the dead side, right? The dead side, dark side kind of goes hand in hand. And so again, there was my question. Being a Valiant reader, maybe down the road it leads into more of the Valiant universe with that, but I just thought that was a little Easter egg for a Valiant reader in it.
Interesting, yeah. So she meets this woman in the woods. It's another weird woman. She uses magic that's totally separate from Aaron, and she's able to gives her this flame and teaches her healing, a healing spell, because she knows like she wants to help Antonius, and she knows that he will die without that help. And
then the scene with Bran and Antonius where they pretty much take care of business. Again, nice bloody gory scene. Totally.
It's brutal.
Right, I dug it. And as they kind of leave that scene, Orcus had killed the whole village, and you just meet Aaron again, and he is just mad at Antonius for having done this, saying that he pushed Orcus into doing this.
Yeah. So Aaron, he kind of starts attacking them again, throwing spells and some smoke.
And then he pulls out a lightsaber.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. So yeah, they end up fighting him, and Antonius, he throws his sword into his back. Totally ridiculous, but it's awesome.
Right, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, such a good sword thrower. Because I mean, Bran was about to be killed right then. He was about to stick Bran. He saves his life. Orcus and Antonius start meeting up together.
Yeah, Orcus is trying to pollute his mind, pretty much, and but Antonius is trying to hold true to kind of the codex, and saying don't even listen to him, just do what you're here to do, and yeah, it's.
Then he stabs himself.
Yeah, just out of nowhere.
Right? But he's like this, and then Jordy Belair with this great green color to it to show this weird setting. Really cool. He ends up stabbing himself in the middle of this eyeball creature with heads everywhere and a big old mouth and teeth. Pretty interesting scene.
Yeah.
At that time, while he's in the middle of it, looks like he's about to be eaten by Orcus, which he stabbed himself, didn't die. And he's still in this war with Orcus, and he's about to be eaten. Then he calls upon the eternal flame.
Right.
And then he gets Frodo's sword, where it turns, like the eternal flame, possesses the sword, and it allows him to pretty much
smite him, just end him.
Right. And then it just blows up and almost to like this dissipates, and you seem to believe that Antonius had basically given himself for the glory of Rome. And
Yep. Yeah, so we're back to Rome, and Rubria is speaking with Nero kind of about the mission that they sent Antonius on. And they are kind of talking about how, he's lost his life and he isn't coming back, and but then all of a sudden it's two frames that they're talking about how he died, and then the third frame is Antonius just coming up being like, hey, I'm back.
Yep.
Super weird, but yeah. And we learned that Rubria kind of she expected him to die out there. She expected a one-way trip and didn't really think that she'd ever see him again after sending him out there. Sure enough, because Bodmal spoke with the weird woman, she was able to heal him, and bring him back. When
he gets back, and his big question is, I did all that. Now, how hard is it for me to tell my son I'm his father?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of a weird. It's kind of a weird thought, I guess, to have after all that. But I mean, I guess that makes sense for his character,
right? Well, and I think part of it,
human being, really be asking those questions,
right? Well, and I think part of it goes to the closure that he had with Orcus over that you dislike your son because he killed your wife, and there was a little bit more psychological piece into there. to where he may have came to more peace with that.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot more sense.
Right.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Dang.
This book, I enjoyed it. Like I say, within the first 3, actually, typically the end of 2 and 3, I got kind of, like I said, I was frustrated, but...
Because you just wanted to know what was happening?
Right, I wanted an answer or two, and it really closed out really well. There's lots of places this can go. Mm-hmm. There's so many places this can go. Within the Valiant universe, it makes you wonder if you're going to have something Geomance or something with the with Shadow Man or with Eternal Warrior, or maybe we might get Exo Manowar somewhere battling Rome. It's really gets you into a lot of questions of what could happen, what could be. But I like that it stood alone.
Yeah, I did too. It was its own, I don't know, thing. It had its own borders kind of around it, you know?
Right. You could have definitely taken off the V and put an I on this book, and it would have made sense to being like an image book.
I agree.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So it was kind of a really cool book.
Yeah.
If you haven't gotten into Valiant, you're looking for a good book, this is one to start. Or if you just want one of their books, this is a good one to read.
I agree. I mean, it's self-contained. It's got a beginning and an end, and you can really enjoy it. Definitely.
Right. We meet the first detectioneer, Antonius Axia, in this book, and it was really interesting that it's called Britannia when it seemed like the majority of the book was about him. Mm-hmm. Although a lot of the book took place in Britannia. So really, I'm really interested to see where it goes from here with We Who Are About to Die.
Yeah, that one sounds super interesting.
Yeah.
It's more gladiator based, and I'm just curious at where that's going to go. Like, what's going to call Antonius to come and investigate that particular thing.
Right.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a female gladiator and how badass she's going to be. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think it's going to be really cool.
Right. And for my belief, I think it's the same team is doing it. So you're going to get some really cool history that Milligan's been putting out, some really good pencil work from Rip, and some great color work from Jordi Belair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if it looks as good as this, then it's going to be awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
And then just the quality of this book, again, in Valiant's prestige format with the single issues. The trade paperback is out right now. It's the first volume, so it's only $9.99.
Cool.
Worth picking up, getting caught up, so you can get on the new book as it comes out.
There was one thing that I did kind of take issue with in this story. It's just like how much Antonius was in the center of everything. Mm-hmm. It tried to focus on a whole lot of different things, but every conversation seemed to end up discussing Antonius in some way.
Right.
If he wasn't in the scene, if he wasn't doing his own thing, they were pretty much talking about him, you know. Oh, he's meddling over here. Or, with Rubria and Nero, it was like, he's over there and everything like that. So it was really interesting. So the scope seemed a little limited in that way. I think overall it's still a really great story. Right. I mean, especially now that I know that Antonius is coming back for another series, it kind of shows me that, okay, like this Antonius is more than just this story, he's going to continue on, and so it's kind of like, I don't know, if you think about Batman, it's like complaining about how the Riddler and Joker aren't talking about something other than Batman,
Right.
But so it is pretty good. I think out of 5 stars, I would definitely give it 4 stars. Okay. The art's amazing. Everything's great. The pacing's really good. I just think I'm still kind of hung up on the fact that it's really centered around Antonius and everything. Mm-hmm. When it seemed like, I don't know, they called Orcus the devil, so like it could have been way bigger.
Right.
That's just me though.
Yeah. And I think I kind of graded it as I was going when I was reading the books, when I was giving a monthly. I was giving, like, number 1, I was pretty pumped up, 4.25, 4.5. It couldn't go between the two. And then it went to about 3.5 for 2 and 3.
Okay.
And then I think it really closed out hard on 4 to give it about 4.5.
Cool.
So I'm saying, like, my overall score is about a 4.25. Don't know if I'm doing the math right, but that's what I'm giving it. 4.25.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, that's good.
I recommend reading it, getting the trade paperback.
I too recommend reading it. It is worth the read.
Yep. Subscribe for some future videos.
You can find us on Twitter as well. You can comment, let us know what you thought of this video. You can also tell us things that you want us to talk about. So that's at WhoDooTV. So yeah, follow us, and we'll try and we want you to be part of the conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, guys. Happy reading.